and that is the Oregon State Beavers, a favorite. 2.5-point favorite at home against Washington. This is exclusively about styles making fights, as we have said over and over and over again. And the number one biggest game of the weekend, Washington at Oregon State. There could be a lot of losing left in college football, and it's easy to circle the big ones. Championship games and rivalry games. It's harder to find the ones like this. And Vegas is begging you to take Washington. I think Oregon State wins the game.
We're in agreement. I like Oregon State here as well. First of all, I think we're due for some losses by top-ranked teams at some point this season, right? And here we are, a top-ranked team going on the road late in the month of November, where we traditionally have an upset or two. So the stage is set here. But also it's the backdrop, I think, of everything that's been going on. You have Oregon State and Washington State left behind in the Pac-2, and you have Washington moving on. I think it's one of the biggest home games Oregon State's going to have in a long time. We'll see what happens with Oregon in that series. But they have Washington, a top-ranked team, coming to their place. All the motivation that's been, nobody wants Oregon State. They can play that to their advantage. The crowd, the home field, everything, the moment, like we talk about on this podcast, to me, sets up favorably here for Oregon State. And also, I like the matchup for Oregon State from a style standpoint. You look at the way that Oregon State will attack. They'll try to do almost what Utah did, play a little bit of ball control with Damian Martinez. Oregon State's offensive line, one of the best in the country. Washington has struggled to stop the run. So this truly is a style make fight here, because you have Washington will try to simply just get ahead, try to outscore Oregon State. Oregon State will try to play a little bit more deliberate and try to play kind of a game like we saw the Arizona score, I guess, of Washington, where it was 31-24, that style of game. But in Corvallis, I think the Beavers are in good position to pull off the, I guess, upset, but they're really favored.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that, but then I thought about it and was like, nope, that makes sense, considering you and I are both picking the Beavers outright. Here's a question for you. The Utah game and how it played out, I thought you kind of deserve credit to both sides, and I think two things can be true here. Like, does it help Washington that they played that style of game? And does it help Oregon State to see Washington play that style of game? And it kind of helps Jonathan Smith in his film study to see what a matchup could look like in a game like that, considering they probably have a better offensive line, better skill players, better quarterback than Utah. But Washington has to think, okay, well, if we're going to play another one of these battles, we're prepared for that style of game, because that's kind of what happened. Washington got out, Utah kept coming back, and then Washington kind of outlasted them. But it was a little bit more physical and probably higher scoring than I think you and I maybe expected. So through the lens of last week's game, how much does that help or hurt Washington?
I think it's both. Like, I think Oregon State can do a lot of similar things to Utah, and to what you're getting at there is, I mean, they have a better quarterback than Utah, DJU. And I also think too, like for Washington, like they've played sort of that style. Like Arizona played them a lower scoring game. They played the game against Utah. It is a little surprising sometimes when you look at the numbers. Like, they're not that far apart in scoring offense. It's 36.6 for Oregon State, 38.6 for Washington. But where the glaring weakness is for Washington, it's stopping the run. They're 127th in the country in defensive success rate against the run. So, I go back to what I said. Oregon State, from a style perspective offensively, and then defensively, they are tied for first in the Pac-12 in sacks. And Washington's offensive line has done a good job of protecting Michael Penix, but that pass rush at home for Oregon State, which has been coming on the last couple of weeks, but that crowd, that could be an advantage there for Oregon State trying to slow down Michael Penix.
Yeah, Washington gave up 7.5 yards per carry, over 200 yards rushing to USC. Oregon ran for over 5 yards a carry, over 200 yards rushing in that game as well. Arizona State, part of the reason they were in that game, 31 carries, 4.7 yards per carry in that game. Couldn't finish drives by and large, and the turnover, of course, led to the close game. But this screams Damian Martinez for like 35 carries.
Yeah, Damian Martinez, Deshaun Fenwick, that Oregon State offensive line, I think could very much be the difference in this one.
All right, we're both so favored at home. Oregon State steals the Pac-12 literally away from Washington in a lawsuit, because Washington is the Pac-12's representative in the lawsuit, and then steals the undefeated season, maybe steals a playoff bid all in one football game. Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying. we both like our Oregon State Beavers to win on Saturday night.
Our Beavers, baby. Go Beav. We love you too, Washington, but like, come on, it's our Beavers.